So, once again, we have basically bared our teeth as far as our hypocrisy or hypocritic nature is concerned. And I'm talking about the current imbroglio, the self-righteous pronunciations by some media practitioners in Jamaica regarding the appearance on the People's National Party's annual conference platform stage over the past weekend, Sunday, if I remember correctly, where Vybz Kartel, along with his attorney, made an appearance at the conference, and not only turned up at the conference, but also appeared on stage where his attorney, not him, made his own contribution in terms of his remarks at the conference. Now, everybody, well, a huge swath of Jamaicans are up in arms as to the appearance of Kartel and the implications or the visual impact of his presence at the conference, and in essence alluding to the PNP's connection with criminality. And of course, the talking heads jump on it, and everybody is up in arms, and they condemn the PNP for its blatant demonstration of its association with criminality. And let me just draw breaks right there, so. Because the politics in Jamaica, from its inception, has had a long, long tail as far as its association with criminality is concerned. You can go back to the 1940s, you can go back to the 50s with the gangs that operated downtown, that supported the PNP. We can go back to the 70s, the late 60s, the 1970s, when the country was largely divided into two, and in particular the areas of Kingston, where there was a specific divide, JLP, PNP, and a lot of these communities were run by criminal gunmen. So, but since the JLP is at the wicket and the PNP is the ones that is being fingered at this point, let me step back a little bit. No, in the 1970s, there was this huge ideological divide between the PNP and the Jamaica Labour Party. You had, in terms of gangs, the Spanglers and Skull and Spanglers gang, two gangs that operated downtown, and each gang associated with them own political thing. And then in Tivoli, you had some strongmen that came through in the late 1970s and into the 1980s, 1990s. Most notably, Claude Massop. When Massop died, Jim Brown took over. And, in the course of that period, Jim Brown's sons, Jati Coke, who was a major enforcer downtown. And then, of course, there is adopted, because from what I'm gathering, Dudus is not exactly Jim Brown's biological son, but he adopted him, and he became the successor after Jati, who was shot dead, and basically departed the scene. Now, in the course of this period, right, each side have them party conference, and it was a common thing to watch as the marauding gunmen, we all know them as gunmen, made their entrances to the national arena, because the party always keep them conference at the national arena. And them come with them, a common thing for them, man. They come at the annual conference and them have them gun. We remember the One Love Peace concert at the National Stadium, when the two factions gathered on the stage during the Mali segment of the conference, the the concert. And, you know, if you have your head screwed on, you're wondering when the shot them are going to start fire. You know, such was the atmosphere. But all of this, you know, transpired into the 90s, into the 2000s, when we saw a government, right? Because the argument is that Mark Golding, by allowing Vybz Kartel on the stage, is a embrace of his criminality. That is the argument, if you will, that is being posited out there. Now, true, Vybz Kartel was charged for murder. The case went before the court and he was convicted. Served 13 years in a prison before the UK Privy Council overturned the charge. And so, as a consequence of which, the courts in Jamaica decided there was no useful, there was no value in trying to, you know, try back that case again. And so he walked. Now, keep in mind, his walking was not because the courts found him not guilty. Essentially, the court decided not to try the case. So technically, right, that charge of murder against him was neither proven nor disproved. And I guess in some quarters, the argument is that he actually did 13 years for the crime. I'm not a lawyer. I mean, I'll get into the specifics of the thing, but we just want to show that measure. Now, in the case of the JLP and their own hypocrisy, again, me tell you about the Dudus and Jati and their impact on the Jamaica Labour Party. It was the Jamaica Labour Party's Bruce Golding who, having taken over from Siaga, who actually, when the United States government hammered out or swore out an extradition warrant for Dudus to be taken into custody and shipped to America, the government of Jamaica, through the Jamaica Labour Party, went into the House of Parliament and declared its support for Dudus, and went further by taking money to get legal representation to lobby in the United States of America for the waiving of the extradition warrant against Dudus. Dudus was charged and went to prison in America for a raft of different charges, including racketeering and drug dealing and all kind of things, arms and ammunition charges, and so on. You know, there was some allusion to, you know, commission of, you know, the taking of lives and so on. Don't know if that was ever proved. But the fact is, Dudus went to prison and is in prison in America here for those crimes. And he was defended stoutly by the Jamaica Labour Party, which was the government of the day. There was no inference involved in how the party persecuted the Dudus issue. In fact, it led to the departure of Bruce Golding when he was summarily fired by the United States State Department, which basically opened the door for Andrew Holness to take over the leadership of the party. And Dudus is still in prison here in the United States of America, where he is completing, I think he was sentenced to some 17 or so years in prison for the charges that were laid against him. Contrast that with Vybz Kartel. Technically, Kartel is a free man. Well, that's not a technicality. The fact is he's a free man. He was freed by the state by their unwillingness to not carry out a retrial for the murder charge that was held against him. And so essentially that made him a free man. Does he have a right to go to a political party conference? Of course, he is a Jamaican. Now, we may argue about the impression that is being given by having a man who is a known, gang leader, if you want to call it that, to be on the stage of a major political party at its party conference. But again, this is the way we are. We as people, as Jamaicans, we are hypocrites, period. And there is this moral indignation that is expressed when things don't like it. But the same people who are point finger fail to appreciate that they're just as guilty or even more. Remember, criminal violence in Jamaica, certainly in the period 1979 to 1980, was responsible for the taking of the lives of more than 1,500 Jamaicans, right? So technically, there is blood on the hands of the two major political parties in Jamaica. So none of them are in a position to decry either side because the two of them guilty. Now, the visuals of a man who is known as a influencer, negative influence, because we have to call a spade a spade. If the man them charge a man for murder, that's a negative. The fact that the charge was not proven doesn't make him innocent. Granted, it don't necessarily say him guilty neither. But in the gray area there, the argument lives. My view, if I was in the position of the leader of the opposition, I would have to find a way to play that down so that, you can't prevent the man from coming at the conference, but to come on the stage, given the cloud that surrounds this whole issue, is a little bit spy. But there's nothing wrong with it in and of itself. We can talk about the morality, but none of the two political parties, major political parties in Jamaica, don't have any moral authority to ventilate this issue because the two of them, the two sides, have blood upon them hands. Our history, our social and political history, is replete with instances of party violence. In fact, as a consequence of all of that, they coined the term political violence. But there's no such thing as a political violence. It's violence. And it is violence that the party allows to happen. And by calling it political violence, we seem to think that it takes away some of this sting. People still are dead, right? And because of the influence of the criminality in our politics, we move resources from the people who need it to the pockets of others who help to benefit the criminal merchants or the merchants of criminality in the country on the two sides. So my personal view, the two sides on bloody, dirty, murky. And the Patakos Keckle, when the JLP appoint out about the PNP, because the two of them guilty as charged. And so me, Miss Lou would have said, Jack Mandora, me no choose none. Because at the bottom line, all of this argument is nothing but blatant, unabashed hypocrisy. So me see it, and so me I say it. Respect. Let me hear on the thoughts from this video here. If you like the video, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel as yet, hit the subscription button so that when the next video then drop, you will hear it. Looking forward to getting your comments in the comment section. Respect.